Enter, rejoice, and so give. Enter, rejoice, and so give. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and so give. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and so give.
Whoops. Good morning. I'm Dennis, and it's a pleasure to serve this morning as the worship associate for this service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Charlotte County, also known as UUFCC. This service is being broadcast live via YouTube. I wish to express my gratitude to technology wizards, Corey and Tom. Also, a big thank you to Linda and Jim, members of the UUFCC choir, for this morning's recorded music, and of course for Jim's live music. I'd like to remind you of a couple simple procedures that will help this broadcast and our real-time service run smoothly. First of all, if you haven't already, please silence your phones. To respect and protect everyone's privacy, it will be our practice to use first names only, and when helpful, last initials. For those who are watching via YouTube, you may wish to have a chalice or a candle available for our chalice lighting ritual. At the end of the service, those watching from home may gather for a social time. But we ask that you wait until you see the posting that invites you to begin. Your patience is appreciated, as we need a moment or two to close down the YouTube connection, and the social time will be via Zoom only. If you are new to the fellowship or a returning snowbird, will you please wave or stand? I don't see any new ones. Okay. We are a progressive and inclusive spiritual community. We value the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and offer a caring and diverse religious community guided by reason, conscience, and compassion. We encourage intellectual inquiry, foster growth, and prompt social justice and environmental responsibility. Our welcome is genuine. This morning, our prelude is entitled, If People Act on Intention. It was written by Jimmy Owens and arranged by Fred Bach. Thank you, Jim. The lighting of the chalice is a ritual that unites Unitarian Universalists everywhere. It is a symbol of so many of our values: love, guidance, courage, sacrifice, illumination, passion, and light of community. No single interpretation is sacrosanct over the others. Like our faith, they are all inclusive and accepted. For this morning's chalice lighting words, they are from Richard S. Gilbert. We bid you welcome who come with weary spirit seeking rest, who come with troubles that are too much with you, who come hurt and afraid. We bid you welcome who come with hope in your heart, who come with anticipation in your step and come proud and joyous. We bid you welcome who are seekers of a new faith, who come to probe and explore, who come to learn. We bid you welcome who enter this hall as a homecoming, who have found here room for your spirit, who find in this people a family. Whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever you are on your journey, we bid you welcome. And now as Cheryl lights the chalice here in the sanctuary, please join me in the recitation of our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. And I invite you to light your home chalices or candles. This morning's hymn is We Shall Overcome. Those who are present may hum, and those of you that are at home, sing right out loud.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I believe we'll walk hand in hand someday. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I believe we shall all be free someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in
are by Jacob Trapp. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, before a flower, a leaf in the sunlight, or a grain of sand. To worship is to be silent, receptive, before a tree astir with the wind or the passing shadow of a cloud. To worship is to work with dedication and with skill. It is to pause from work, listen to a strain of music. To worship is to sing with the singing beauty of the earth. It is to listen through a storm to the still small voice within. Worship is a loneliness seeking communion. It is a thirsty land crying out for rain. Worship is kindred fire within our hearts. It moves through the deeds of kindness, through acts of love. Worship is the mystery within us reaching out to the mystery beyond. It is an inarticulate silence yearning to speak. It is the window of the moment open to the sky of the eternal. And now, Laura, if you will bring up the Book of Life. We have a long tradition at UUFCC of sharing our joys and sorrows and life milestones. Thank you. By entering into the Book of Life. But because of the pandemic, this tradition has been modified, although we're still having the book open for those present to write in. Those at home, if you have joys that you would like in this book and read on Sunday morning, simply send an email to worshipassociates@uufcc.org. And now there are several entries. This is the first. For 20 years, we were able to celebrate our January 14th anniversary with all of you with a sheet cake. Then came COVID. For 2 years now, your life has been less sweet than it would have been. Hopefully, we'll be back to normal for our 35th anniversary next year. This is from Dave and Florence Martin. The next entry is from me. My daughter's partner, Jeff, has extensive cancer. This week, they learned that he also has a blocked artery that is not operable. And then on Thursday, he suffered a detached retina and had emergency surgery. Please keep Katie and Jeff in your thoughts and prayers. Please keep all the folks who lost their homes to this morning's tornadoes in your thoughts and prayers. I learned through the media just prior to the service that there are about 50 manufactured homes that were destroyed in northern Charlotte County. Thoughts and prayers are asked for the family and friends of our long-term friend, Stacy Hostler, who died last week from brain surgery complications. And this is from Lori and Jackie. Prayers for my daughter, Susan in Virginia, who is hospitalized with a kidney stone. We hope it passes soon. And this is from Florence Martin. And now let us have a time of silence, prayer, or meditation. We'll be called back from our silence with the musical prayer, Spirit of Life. This morning, Reverend Kathy Schmidt will join us virtually. Her sermon, which is in 3 parts and will also include a musical interlude, is entitled Hearts That Inspire.
Good morning. It's great to be with you. I'm going to start with a story this morning, and then we'll have a meditation and reflection, and then, as Dennis mentioned, the sermon in 2 parts with a time of reflection in between. So our story is from long ago and far away in northern India, around the year 250 before the Common Era, BCE. Now that's about 250 years after the time of the historical Buddha, and 250 years before Jesus of Nazareth. So now you have our time frame. And it's the story of Ashoka, an emperor. He was very powerful, bloodthirsty, and greedy, particularly when it came to the expansion of his empire. Ashoka was also very unhappy. Our story takes place on a battlefield after one of his campaigns of expansion. 100,000 had been killed. As he walked through the carnage, Ashoka was horrified at what he had caused. Tradition tells us that just then, a Buddhist monk came walking across the battlefield. As one writer tells us, Sharon Salzberg, the monk did not say a word, but his being was radiant with peace and happiness. Seeing that, Ashoka thought, why is it that I, having everything in the world, feel so miserable, whereas this monk, who has nothing apart from his robes and the bowl he carries, looks so serene and happy in this terrible place? So We know that Ashoka followed the monk and asked him how this came to be, and the monk introduced him to the path he followed. Ashoka's heart was changed. We are told by Salzburg that Ashoka stopped waging imperialistic wars. He no longer allowed people to go hungry. He transformed himself from a tyrant into one of history's most respected rulers, acclaimed for thousands of years as just and benevolent. End quote. It has been suggested that Ashoka's children were the ones who helped to spread the teachings, and that without this, the world might not have access to Buddha's teachings today. Throughout time and across the lands, there have been voices that encouraged us to consider the intent and the impact of our words and our deeds. So let's travel from India now to 12th century Italy, where we find an invitation to meditation in the words of the Christian mystic Giovanni de Pietro de Bernardoni, now known as St. Christopher. In the silence that follows each of these well-known phrases, I invite you to reflect on how you can let hope more deeply into your life. God, Spirit of life, love, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may sow love. Where there is wrong, the spirit of forgiveness. Where there is discord, harmony. Where there is error, truth. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there are shadows, light. Where there is sadness, joy. God grant that I may not seek so much to be comforted as to comfort, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. Let us be together in just a short moment of shared silence. May comfort, understanding, and love be with us today and every day. The radiance of one Buddhist monk inspired an emperor and is still affecting the world today. One person's serenity changed the course of history. This month, in our nation, we celebrate another person who changed history. We honor the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We will hear much about his words and deeds. For so many of us, he is a great font of inspiration. We most often remember King's dream. Yet we are called as well to remember his sometimes scathing critique on the conditions of his day. It was critical that King was willing to name the injustice. And it was critical that King could articulate another possibility, the dream. King put before us a map. We are here and we want to get to there. But King did more. He told us how to get from here to there. This is the third critical component of King's thought. We are here, we want to get there, and here is how we will do it. He said, "But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us seek not to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force." End quote. We are in a difficult place, but there is another place, a place to which we can travel, and together we will travel the high road to get there. I want to talk about that high road. I want to talk about that high road articulated by King and so many others who came before him. As Unitarian Universalists, we draw on many sources for our inspiration and wisdom. One rich source on which we draw is those who have taken up the challenges of life before us. In describing this source, we say we draw on the words and deeds of prophetic people, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Right? The words and deeds of prophetic people which challenge us to confront the powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Whenever I read this, Dr. King is one of the prophetic people I think of. I'd like to focus on an important lesson Dr. King can teach us about opening our hearts and minds to the vast and wonderful sources of inspiration in our world today. Let us not forget that while he was and is inspiring, he also was inspired. King found inspiration in others. So we are inspired by the words and deeds of MLK. But you know, Dr. King was not a Unitarian Universalist. He was a Baptist. But King also drew inspiration and wisdom from those who came before him. Jesus of Nazareth, no doubt, but also Mohandas K. Gandhi. But you know, Gandhi wasn't a Baptist or a Christian or a Unitarian Universalist. He was a Hindu. And Gandhi also drew inspiration and wisdom from those who came before him. He treasured the scripture of his own tradition, especially the Bhagavad Gita. He also read Christian scripture and was said to be particularly fond of the Sermon on the Mount. Gandhi was inspired as well when he read the writings of Henry David Thoreau. Thoreau, by the way, not a Hindu, not a Baptist. He was a transcendentalist with ties to the Unitarian movement of his day. And who did Thoreau read? Well, he was among those Americans who were reading the first translations of texts from India and other places in Asia. Thoreau was strongly influenced by the teachings of Buddhism. And why was Thoreau able to read the teachings of Buddhism? As we heard a moment ago, the Buddhist teachings were spread by the children of the Indian Emperor Ashoka after his battlefield transformation, a transformation that caused him to change his rule from one of violence to one of justice and benevolence, all as a result of a single Buddhist monk, his being radiant with peace and happiness. This is a long list of people from different times and places and traditions, people with much in common, people with a desire and an intention to spread peace and justice, a desire and an intention to end violence and suffering. And these people shared a willingness to find inspiration and wisdom in the words and deeds of those who came before them. They shared a commitment to learn from others. In all times and places and traditions, there are those who would spread peace and justice. There are those who would end violence and suffering. Big names like Buddha and Jesus and Thoreau and Gandhi and King, and nameless monks wandering across battlefields. Revolutionary teachers and Buddhists and Christians and Hindus and transcendentalists and more. People whose hearts were big enough to understand, to truly understand that the only way to bring peace and love and justice into our lives is to bring peace and love and justice into the lives of all people. As we do the work of peace and love and justice, may we each in our own way open our hearts and our minds that we may be inspired and in turn live our lives so that we too may be inspiring. You and me and our neighbors and our friends, we can be the ones to inspire someone who inspires someone who inspires someone. We can be like the nameless monk. Before we continue, I invite you to a moment of reflection on the condition of your own heart and where it finds inspiration, who it might in turn inspire. Jim? We can be like the nameless monk. And in what way shall we be inspired and inspire one another? As the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. reminds us, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Only love. I would suggest that the jewel handed down across the centuries can be well described by looking at the Buddhist teaching of loving kindness. In the Buddhist tradition, this teaching is called metta, M-E-T-T-A. Metta is a word from the ancient Pali language in which the Buddhist teachings were originally recorded. Metta is usually translated as love or loving kindness. Metta means to hope for, to work for the well-being of all. To hope for, to work for the well-being of all. I want to spend a few minutes on this concept of love as it is meant in this context. We often get confused because the word love is used so many different ways in our language. But it's important, this concept of love. Love as it is meant on this path that we're talking about, this path that helps us spread justice and peace, on this path that helps us end violence and suffering. In her book, Loving Kindness, American Buddhist teacher Sharon Salzberg, from whom our earlier story about Ashoka came, explains the confusion. She writes, in our culture, when we talk about love, we usually mean either passion or sentimentality. It's crucial to distinguish metta from both of these states. About passion, Salzberg writes, and see if this matches your experience. Passion is enmeshed with feelings of desire and of wanting or of owning and possessing. Passion gets entangled with needing things to be a certain way, with having our expectations met. Salzberg notes, it is not a coincidence that the word passion derives from the Latin word for suffering. Wanting and expectation inevitably entail suffering. So that's passion. Salzberg explains that metta is different. She continues, by contrast, the spirit of metta is unconditional, open, and unobstructed. A friend may disappoint us. She may not meet our expectations, but we do not stop being a friend to her. We, in fact, may disappoint ourselves. We may not meet our own expectations, but we do not cease to be a friend to ourselves. Salzberg then turns her attention to the other area of confusion, sentimentality. She writes, sentimentality, the mental state that masquerades as love, it's like looking through the lens of a camera that's smeared with a little Vaseline. Sentimentality puts things into what is called soft focus. We cannot see the rough edges, the trouble spots, the defects. Everything is just too nice. Sentimentality finds pain unbearable, and so it rejects it. Metta, Salzberg explains, is not about clouding the truth, but about seeing it clearly. It's about the practice of continually opening ourselves up. She tells us, when we practice metta, we open continuously to the truth of our own actual experience, changing our relationship to life. Metta, the sense of love that is not bound to desire, that does not have to pretend that things are other than they are, overcomes the illusion of separateness and of not being part of a whole, right? Let me say that again. Metta, the sense of love that is not bound up to desire, that does not have to pretend that things are other than the way they are, overcomes the illusion of separateness, of not being a part of the whole. So can we be that open to see clearly and stay connected without clinging, to allow ourselves to be inspired by greater understanding? Some will say that this is a tall order. And yes, Yes, it is. That's why we are here, and the world we wish to see is there. The road between here and there is hard. This is why, after millennia of human civilization, we are here and not there. Yes, the road is hard, but as far as I can see, it is the only way to get from here to there. This is the message that we have received over and over again. The words and deeds of prophetic people challenge us to confront structures of evil, powers and structures of evil. Yes, confront them with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. The transforming power of love. The end of loving kindness, its goal and its hopeful results, is the creation of the world which we wish to see. If our end, our goal is a world with more peace and justice, and our path is loving kindness, how do we get on that path? Well, for one thing, we do not get on that path by simply listening to the great voices from the past, or from holding them up, or even from worshiping them. We get on the path by following them down it. All these names that we recall, surely they were important in their time. Without a doubt, their messages are important today, and yet they did not change the world by themselves. The changes that they helped to bring about came about because people allowed themselves to be inspired. Things changed because people, regular people like you and me, took a step from here onto the path that leads to there. You and me and our neighbors and our friends are the ones who will make a difference. How we live our lives matters. It matters deeply. If we share a desire to spread peace and justice, if we share a desire to end violence and suffering, if this is our end, then our path is loving kindness, and it's a tall order. It's true that the path is hard. Sharon Salzberg gives us these words to encourage us on the path. She reminds us that beginning again and again in love is what we will need to do. Beginning again over and over and over again. Quoting from Salzberg one last time, she writes, "Be patient with yourself in this practice and try not to hold rigid expectations of what you should be experiencing. When we have rigid expectations, we can feel a sense of helplessness if those expectations are not quickly met. We see our actions as fruitless and not going anywhere. Remember," she says, "whatever anger, fear, or sorrow arises will pass away, and we can always return to the intention to care for ourselves and all beings. Beginning again and again is the actual practice, not a problem to overcome." Again, beginning again and again is the actual practice, not a problem to overcome. Loving kindness is a high road. It's a hard road. Still, it is the road that has been pointed to prophetic people for millennia, and it is pointed to still. It is the hard road, and we will stumble along the way, but do not despair. We can always return to the intention to care for ourselves and all beings. Beginning again and again is the actual practice, not a problem to overcome. We have a dream of more hope, more peace, more love, more joy. It's a dream shared with people throughout the ages and across the lands. It's a dream we can follow one step at a time, beginning again and again, every day, every moment, in love. May it be so.
Wow. In our tradition, congregations exist because of the generosity and support of members and friends. It is our privilege and our responsibility to ensure the health and future of this fellowship. To this end, your offering to support the ministry of this fellowship, whether by pledge or donation, may be offered online. There are several ways you can give. You can mail checks to the office, drop them in our mailbox, or call the office to make other arrangements. We are also equipped to accept donations through the Venmo app. Payments through this app should be made to UUFCC offering. If you'd like your donation to apply to anything other than the operating fund, like our second helping, for example, please indicate your intentions in the check's memo line. There is also, right by this lovely arrangement, a basket. That's for second helping. And then there's a basket here by the door, and that's for any offering for the operating fund. At this point, I would like to read a letter from Herb Levin. Good morning. In the big scheme of things, we are a small fellowship, and we are a small fellowship without a minister. But this has in no way impeded us from showing our big heart, our willingness to support those in need, our generosity, our moral compass. The significance of our second helping has been greatly magnified since the onset of the pandemic. Our decision to exclusively support food pantries and delivery has, we believe, worked towards relieving the pressure, anxiety, discomfort, and often anguish that can accompany bare shelves and inadequate nutrition in many homes. UUFCC has stepped up big time. Since April 2020, our big-hearted fellowship has contributed over $23,000 to assist equally Harry Chapin Food Bank, CHAPS, and Meals on Wheels. You should be very proud of our effort. You deserve to feel very good about what we have accomplished. But our job is not done. The pandemic obviously continues. In a two-parent home, one is often unable to work due to the astronomical price of childcare. In a one-parent home, the unemployed parent or caregiver is often dependent on the woefully inadequate federal SNAP program to feed dependents of ages young and old. So yes, we have more to do. We would very much like to round up to and even cross the $25,000 line. This season is the season to give, the season to appreciate our good fortune, the season to care and to share. I have said it before, but I never tire of repeating. I am endlessly proud of being a part of UUFCC, the little fellowship that could. And I believe the little fellowship that will. Please direct your generosity to the office, annotating your checks with second helping. And from those who receive our gifts, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. Again, there's a second helping basket by this arrangement. Now, if you're here for the first time, which I guess no one is, so I'll forget that. Under the life of the community, I want to today, rather than making specific announcements, I want to really stress that you religiously read your weekly copy of the updates, which includes a calendar and a link for connecting via Zoom. The updates provide a very important means for staying connected during these challenging times. Additionally, If you would like to have fellowship events highlighted during the service, you can email the worship associates at worshipassociate@uufcc.org. Again, do not forget to read the weekly copy of the updates. You'll be glad you did. Mary Jane's musings are terrific, and you'll find out how active we really are despite this horrible pandemic. Our closing words are from Kenneth L. Patton, and they're entitled, "This House." This house is for the ingathering of nature and human nature. It is a house of friendships, a haven in trouble, an open room for the encouragement of our struggle. It is a house of freedom, guarding the dignity and worth of every person. It offers a platform for the free voice, for declaring both in times of security and danger the full and undivided conflict of opinion. It is a house of truth-seeking, where scientists can encourage devotion to their quest, where mystics can abide in a community of searchers. It is a house of art, adorning its celebrations with melodies and handiworks. It is a house of prophecy, outrunning times past and times present in visions of growth and progress. This house is a cradle for our dreams, the workshop of our common endeavor. And Jim will now play a song by Bruce Ballinger, and it was arranged by Fred Bach, and it's entitled, "We Come into This House." And now please join me in our traditional recitation as Cheryl extinguishes the chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of community. May those ideals shine in our lives and warm our hearts until we are together again. So now, go in peace. Following our musical benediction, go now in peace. Those who are at home may join a Zoom social time. We'll let you know as soon as the technology is ready for conversation. If you're in the sanctuary, please exit immediately following the service. And if the weather's permitting, we can meet out on the patio. But even so, even though we're outside, we ask you to remain wearing a mask.